Welcome everyone. We're here for another session with Build with Ben, and today what we're going to be doing is working with Vue 3 and TypeScript. And so this is a popular topic that's been around, especially with Vue 3 being rewritten in TypeScript. And one of the reasons why I've generally steered away from TypeScript is that I think there's a lot of feelings around TypeScript when it comes to the community, right? I think there are people who are hardcore TypeScript enthusiasts, and then there are people who are really skeptical of it for good reason, right? And there's some people who've tried it, who've been burned by it. And personally, as someone who's seen the tech industry go through a lot of different changes and developments, I think there is somewhere that there's a happy medium between the two where you can appreciate what makes TypeScript helpful to development while not having all the overhead of the complications of all the advanced patterns that we often hear about with TypeScript that people talk about. Oh, with TypeScript you can do this and this, but a lot of times I think less is more when it comes to this kind of stuff. And so anyhow, today we'll be working on just building an app with Vue 3 and TypeScript, looking at some of the approaches that we can take, playing around with some of the APIs, and just having some fun with it. But yeah, that's basically what that'll be. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so let me sure everything's good. So here is the official docs from the Vue.js.org website talking about the different ways you can use Vue with TypeScript. So let's start with the very basics, which is how you get started setting up a Vue 3 and TypeScript project, shall we? So first thing first is, for those who've seen me scaffold a lot of projects, one of the things you'll know is that within the Vue ecosystem, one of the popular toolchains being used is the Vue CLI, and that's our go-to for basically most of Vue's life as far as getting a project scaffolded up and running. But the thing about Vue CLI is that it uses Webpack underneath the hood, and if you haven't heard recently, Vite is an up-and-coming build toolchain when it comes to supporting frameworks, not just Vue actually, just whether it's React, Svelte, Astro. There's a lot of people who are, we can say, jumping on the Vite bandwagon, but for good reason, right? It's similar to how a lot of people use Webpack to build their stuff. Vite is doing a lot in terms of pushing ES modules and just a faster development workflow. And so seeing all the client-side JavaScript, basically tool chains center around that, is really helpful because basically what you end up getting is a lot of centralization around efforts. People have shared utilities. I think this is really great for the community as a whole. And so typically, from Vue CLI, I was using Vite for the longest time to basically scaffold projects, right? So basically you can see here, I would run something like npm create Vite latest. And then there's a pretty simple prompt for, no, let's not do that. Let me just create another one. Let's just do Vite project 2 real quick. You can select what framework you wanted to use. It would try to set up some scaffold, but it was fairly generic from a prompt perspective. While that certainly works for setting up a Vue TypeScript project, the thing we're going to be using today is actually called Create Vue. And that's the new recommended way for creating your Vue projects with TypeScript. And so what it does is it essentially uses the Vite scaffolding underneath still. So it's still powered by Vite and all that, but you have a little bit more of a tailored experience for it. So let's go ahead and show you how that works. So let me actually drop the official docs here in the resources so I can link to it later. So you all have that. And so basically here we can see, so init Vue 3, that's basically all we got to do. So let's go ahead and do that. So in here, so if I do npm init Vue at 3, oh, I cannot type. Let me do that. Clear npm init Vue at 3. There we go. So now install the following packages. Yep, let's do that. Okay, so for this one, this project that I'm creating is called ToEat. And it's a play on words of the to do. And so, yep, we'll call it also to eat as well. That's totally fine. We're going to add TypeScript. Look at this. Add JSX support. Nah, not necessary. Add Vue router for single page development. We will need the router. Yep. Let's do Pinia for state management. Vite test for user testing. For now, I'm not going to worry about testing for now, so we're just going to say no. Cypress is not in here just yet, so we won't worry about that. Let's ESLint. Let's add prettier. This is great. So now if we go into cdn.toEat, we should see now, yes. So let's go ahead and open this up in VS Code. So we can see now everything's actually been scaffolded. So we can see here, this is pretty standard Vue project. And what's nice about this is a lot of things have been already configured for us. So in other words, you can see here that inside of our main.ts, we see all this stuff regarding app using create Pinia, router, all this stuff has already been scaffolded for us, which is actually pretty darn nice. So if we go ahead and run this right now, so let's go ahead and run npm install. In the meantime, let's go ahead and shift the perspective on browsers. Ooh, let me go ahead and, there we go. Let's do that. Okay. So, bump bump. All right, everything's installed. Let's npm run dev. And so we can see here that currently it's working on port 5173. I think that's something that V's been defaulting. So here we go. But the thing is that normally we want it to run on port 3000. So I think we're going to want to change that. So inside of here, the way you do that is, I believe we go to server port 3000 like this. I think that'll do the trick. And so let's see if my memory of that configuration is correct. So once again, if we run npm run dev, oh, it's running on 3003. I wonder if that's, let's see, check package. Hey, what's up, Jacob? I see View Gilmore here in the chat. Hey, it's good to see everyone. Yeah, it's good to, things are good. Yeah, ran a 5K this past weekend. Feeling accomplished and excited to just be here streaming and hang out with y'all. Yep, Jacob here. Yeah, you're right. V3 does use that as the default. So the thing is that I think it's probably due to port conflict, but a lot of, I don't know, I have shortcuts for 3000. A lot of things do rely on 3000 as like the core port. So however, let me see, check port usage Mac. So then here we go. I think actually, you know what? I think I did have a command to actually look at that at one point. Do m setup, I think. Yeah. Oh yeah, I said WTF 3000. I think that's what I'd written. Okay, so if I do that, then this will say, oh, what is it? So then I can do, is that kill 3000? Okay, kill 3000. Then WTF 3000. Nope, that didn't do it. How did I do this? I thought I saved. Nope. Okay, anyways, let's see. So if it's already in use, then we say lsof. Yep. Yeah, that's how you check it. lsof kill-9, kill-9, then the PID. Okay, got it. So what I want to do here is kill-9242212. Now if we do what is on 3000, great. Now nothing's on there. Now if we run dev, now we should be good. Okay, we're good. Solid. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a couple things right now. Okay, looks like our project's up and running. This is great. So let's get init. Let's go ahead and how we want to do this. We're going to say git, let's see, GitHub repo create. And we're going to push in a local repo. We're going to push that. Push that. Yep, it'll be public. This is fine. At a remote origin. Yep, please do that. And then now we have all this stuff. We can then git add config scaffold new view 3 TypeScript project. And then we can push. Git push origin main. All right, excellent. So now we should be in the clear to actually get development on this. Okay, so first thing first, as we saw when we came to the creation setup experience, the create view CLI is now basically optimized for the kind of packages you probably will want by default out of the gate when it comes to building your view project. You can always scaffold it still directly through npm create, I think, or init vite, and that will go ahead and let you pick view, but then after that you have to install and configure everything manually yourself. So it's, I think the one to definitely watch for is the create view package, as that developer experience continues to grow and get enhanced over time. Okay. So now that we have that set up, it's time for us to start building things, which is exciting. All right, so we see we have some routers, some links. Okay, so what's the premise of this app that I'm building? So the premise of this app is called ToEat. So I'm just going to go ahead and just add that to the H1 right here, ToEat. Do we see it somewhere? Oh, it's not running anymore. That's right, because I stopped the dev server. All right, there we go. Refresh. There we go, ToEat. All right, so ToEat is a play on the concept of to do, like think to do MVC, but really I'm a huge fan of eating delicious food, so I figure why not build an app to track the things that we want to try and all that fun stuff, but let's do that while we're also doing things within TypeScript. So given that, let's go ahead and take a look at what we want to do. So let me go ahead and open up my notes here on it. Okay, so the first thing first is we need to set up a way for people to add the restaurant that they want to try. So for now, let's go ahead and just delete some of this scaffold that's happening around here. So there's a decent amount of styles in here, but that's okay. So we can go ahead, let's delete the hello world here. So that's gone. We can delete the logo. We don't need that. Okay, perfect. And then we have a navigation. That's totally fine for now. We can leave that alone. And then we are gonna just see. So router link to about. Okay, so this is now where our views are, right? So we can see here about view, home view. Okay, great. So home view, the welcome, and then the welcome is from the components here. Wow, there's a lot of different built-in stuff in here. Okay, and then we even have icons built into here. Wow, there's a lot that comes with this. Okay, not a problem. So on the home view, what we can do at the bare minimum is take this away, and let's just say h2 hello. There we go. Okay, so we have the home view, about view. This is good. So the first thing first is we want to let people define like a restaurant that they want to try. So we can start with basically a simple form that allows people to configure some aspects about, let's say, a restaurant. So if we were thinking about this from a coding perspective, we would probably create, let's see. All right. So we want to do, let me do this. Create a form that allows users to add a restaurant to a list. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm a big fan of developing locally for the most part as a way to allow us to see where the refactoring happens naturally, because it's easy to jump straight into stores and that kind of stuff. But again, it's nice to see the progress in how the thinking behind that. As we can see here, so let's see, we can do a form, submit.prevent, and then we'll add restaurant. This is fine. I do like that. And then otherwise, let's go ahead and see. Let's see, GitHub Copilot is doing some suggestion here. Let's go ahead and see what it's suggesting. Save that real quick, see what we got. Add restaurant name. Okay. Okay, we can do this. So inside of here, let's go ahead and approach this from a composition API perspective for the sake of this particular working session, I think, just to keep things straightforward. So the first thing first is we want to actually have a list of restaurant names, right? So typically the way we would do this is we would go, okay, so we have a bunch of restaurant. So we have a restaurant list that will be just an empty array. And then what we want to do within this is we want to say, okay, so we have a function called add restaurant, and this restaurant will go ahead and take in a ref that's called the, let's see, new restaurant name. And this will be a reactive reference. So there you go. And so let's do this. This will be new restaurant name. And then there we go. And then we'll make this a ref2. And then we'll just say new restaurant name dot value equals, oh wait, other way around. It would be restaurant list dot value dot push restaurant name dot value, like this. Okay. So we see that we have a bunch of errors. Why is this? Let's see. Ref is not defined. Oh, that's interesting. It's forcing me to import ref. Okay, I thought that was a global macro, but that's fine. Okay, there we go. We have that. And then just to make sure everything's working now, we'll have our list element. We'll loop through the restaurant in restaurant list. And then for now, we're just going to do a lazy key of the restaurant itself, because we'll just assume they'll be unique for now. And so we can be like frozen yogurt, burger. Okay, burger. Okay, I can't type. Okay, this is great. But what we'll notice here is that we're getting some linting issues, because we can basically see like how do we go ahead and check the fact that what's going on here. So let's see, what is it yelling at us? ESLint, oh, there's some prettier stuff. Okay, for now, normally I would turn off the semicolon, but for the sake of not spending time configuring that at the moment, we're not gonna worry about it. Okay, view compiler, what is it not happy about? Unexpected token, oh, silly me, I made a typo. Okay, so replace that, can I do actually ESLint is here, extends, I'm not going to worry about that right now. It seems like my prettier and ESLint are arguing with each other. That's sometimes the tricky thing about linters. Okay, so the tricky thing though here is that we have your argument of type string is not assignable to the parameter type of type never. And so that's because it looks like we are, okay, so we can see here, when we're looking at restaurant list, it's actually not telling us what we should really be expecting right now from the thing that we're adding. And so this is where I think it's interesting. TypeScript, again, I think gets a lot of bad rap because people talk about how complicated it is. But again, there's always the flip side of it where in vanilla JavaScript, we are at the whim of trying to remember either what our past self did Or what could be more confusing is you're trying to figure out what someone else did, so you don't even have a chance to trace that, and you're doing some guesswork. And so more importantly, right now we're saying that it's pushing just like a string, right? So what we could do is just say that we're passing an array of strings. So this is one way we could type this. And this, I think, fixes the error here, because what we're saying is, oh yeah, a restaurant list would just contain an array that contains a bunch of strings. And that way people don't push random stuff to it. But this is simplistic, right? At this point, this is very similar to a standard to-do list, right? We want to talk about tracking places to eat. And so if that's the case, we need to actually have different aspects about the restaurant that we're working with. So let's go ahead and create some documentation around that, right? So how might we do this normally? Normally, if you're like, oh, we're creating a new restaurant, you might have some document somewhere that's, okay, restaurants, right? Imagine if you had like a Notion doc for your team and you're like documenting what properties you want for that restaurant. You might be like, oh, we have a restaurant. Let's see. Obviously, there's the name of the restaurant. Oh, that's going to be like a string. And then we're going to have what else? So address is sure. I like that auto suggestion. We're going to have a rating, but rather than a number though, we're going to rate it via like a series of string categories that we're going to define. And then, okay, that's fine. So we have or actually not even rating. It's like a status, right? Because a lot of times when you want to try food, the thing I found weird with ratings, this is a small tangent with ratings, is that something that's 5-star or 4-star is contextual to the area. And so I think words are more useful when it comes to what's going on. So examples of this might be like, you want to know whether or not the status, so you'd be like want to try, for example. Another example might be like, let's see, must try, for example. That's something that like, if someone comes to visit, you absolutely should do it. At the same time, anyway, so we have a bunch of stuff like this we could totally test out. So let me do, this is basically a string, but with some examples here of what kind of string. We want to expect some very specific strings. We actually don't want any string to appear. So we have name, we have address, we have status. What other things might be fun for the restaurant? You probably want some notes on probably some specific things that you want to try, or you might want to be able to recommend. So maybe you know what? Honestly, we should probably have the ability to attach certain dishes that we really like, and that can be like segmented into another part of the app. Let's just like blue skies thinking here. And so this is an array of dish objects. Yep, I think that should be good. And then honestly, let's just stop there for now. Okay. So the thing is that normally you'll document this somewhere and someone will have spent the time to think this through. And the thing is that if coding is about reducing redundant effort on repeated things that people are doing, then our goal here is to help people do that further by allowing things like, this is why autocomplete is super helpful, right? How many of us use autocomplete? And so if we reframe TypeScript, I think partly a little bit around helping to provide more custom autocomplete and to help more provide custom linting errors, I think that's the area I seem to sit in, at least when it comes to the TypeScript debate. As far as I think there's a way to do TypeScript just enough that it's still easy to use and you don't get caught up in this constant, people talk about migrating large code bases and some of the headaches they have to deal with. And I think sometimes that has to deal with people's desire to make it like the perfect TypeScript code base. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think that's really tricky to do because when you go all in on a tech stack like that, you find yourself sometimes, I think, with edge cases that you're forcing the solution or you don't have the problem, but you're trying to enforce a solution on it. And I think you get some weird results sometimes out of it, especially when a lot of people are still looking to dip their toes in it. I really feel like being like, oh, your entire thing should be in TypeScript is tricky or problematic, more importantly. And so one thing that's important to note about this, though, is that you'll notice that even though here we are saying that this is a TypeScript project that I started, I'm actually not even, again, like minus this small piece right here, I'm not actually using any TypeScript. And I think that's really like my default recommendation when it comes to TypeScript as a whole, is that you can opt into the project at the beginning. And that's what I think, like opt into it so that all the tooling is set up. And then whenever you're ready to start sprinkling it in where it might make sense, then you can start to see some of the value and how that adds up over time. So for example, if I took off the lang TS actually up here, that's what's actually defining the script setup. Then you'll notice here that not right now we need to configure allow.js. Let's do that real quick. TS config allow JS true. Ooh, that's not what I want. Allow JS true. Yeah. Okay. Now that we have that, allow JS true, TS config. I think I just need to restart. There we go. And then if I close this, open the home view again. There we go. Now it's clean. So Allow.js, I think is what I would recommend for a lot of projects where your entire team isn't totally bought into TypeScript yet, and you just want to have the ability to try things out to help. Because, so what was I saying? So what I'm saying here is that by allowing yourself to set up the project with TypeScript, and then more importantly, allow JS on it, you allow progressive enhancement of your code base so that when it makes sense, you can add in a little bit of TypeScript and then it'll show up in other places. Like you won't even realize it and it'll help you out, but you don't have to feel like you have to migrate everything towards it. And so Jacob here in the chat, exactly, he makes the comment here. It feels like libraries have the benefit of deep and correct typing, but apps just use enough to help. I love that advice. And absolutely, I think that's something worth mentioning is that if you're writing a library that's going to be very generic that everyone is going to be using, then there's something to be said about making your types, like making sure all the types in your code base are strongly documented. You're using generics and everything reuses everything. There's a lot of deep dive in that regard. But I would say most developers who are like told to work with TypeScript are working on front-end applications and places where they're not actually so deep in it, and more importantly, the code is only being reused in certain places. And so once again, I think as we'll see as we work through this, I want to push for TypeScript being used more as documentation in just like light areas of code rather than like TypeScript all the things. That's basically what my 2 cents on that is. Okay, so you've done all this work, right? And we have restaurants here, we have this. It would be nice if we could actually find a way to complete that, because I don't know about you, I've written plenty of code where like I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, okay, inside of restaurant list, what was it? I think it was name and then, or was it title? And you sit here trying to remember what that object shape is supposed to be like. And this is, let's be honest, this is an inefficient, a waste of time. Like I might make the analogy is like password managers for those who've used it, or if you haven't. Basically, I feel like in life, there's only so much time to do things, and I don't want to spend time trying to remember what my password is for something. So having something autofill, having that move on, so I don't have to worry about typos and that kind of stuff, makes a big difference in my productivity. They're like little micro improvements, but those 1% really do add up over time. For restaurant lists, we really just don't want an array of just any object, and where people could, especially when we think about modularity and reusability of code, we really want to be careful about how this is being ingested other places. So let's just keep it simple for now. Let's go ahead. And so for objects, I usually recommend using interfaces. We're not going to, again, we're not teaching TypeScript in this. We're just going to talk like just high level of what my experience is with. And so we can see with the interface here, the interface, basically think of it as a way to define a type for an object. There's other differences, but that's basically at a high level what it is. We can see here that it looks like Copilot was reading some of the things that I had written. So it's fine. So string, status, dishes, an array of dishes. That's fine. This is great. And then, so now that we have this interface, parsing error. Oh, silly me. I need to be in langTS right now. There we go. Now that we have this, we can then tell that restaurant list should be an array of restaurants, just like that. And so what's interesting here is that you'll now notice that there's a bunch of stuff happening. Let's see, argument type not parameter is missing the following parameters. And so this is what's great now, is that when I come into here, you'll notice that I can actually see the properties of the thing that's going to happen. So in this case, for example, there's like address, there's status and string. So I can create this, status, and dishes, just like that. And so when we save here, let's see, replace, oh God, ESLint. Anyways, it's fine. We're going to figure this out. So there we go. Now, if we go ahead and check this out, we can be like test. So there we go. We see that our restaurant object now is in a greater shape. And so what's cool about this is now that we can come in here, I can actually do some autocomplete where if I do restaurant dot, whether it's name or let's see restaurant dot address, you'll see that it actually appears in the autocomplete. And this kind of, basically there's like a reduction in effort or like a deduplication. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's just more efficient, basically is what I'm trying to say. So that going forward, when you're in your template, you can be like, oh, okay, what are the kind of things that we have here? So when I hit Command Space, you'll see that there's a bunch of stuff being mentioned here, I think because it's not sure what to look for. But let me see, can I go from the bottom? I don't like this pop-up. Here we go. So these here, when you see the little box here, that's the property. And yeah, so Jacob here with the comment here, even if you're documenting your types kind of like I did earlier in comments, JSDoc will actually still try to parse it and help you with those things. But given that we're here to intentionally use TypeScript, I went ahead and just used it directly. Okay, So we have this new restaurant name. Excellent. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me just do restaurant name. There we go, test. All right, so let's fill out this form a little bit more now. And so instead of just being a restaurant name, let's call it new restaurant this time. And new restaurant should be of type restaurant, honestly, is really what it should be. And so we'll do it like this, and then it's no overload matches this call. So okay, so maybe what I should do is make all this stuff optional for now, like this. There we go. Okay, so the question mark makes the thing optional, although I'm not sure that's the best approach for this right now, but we're gonna play around with some stuff just to see how this goes. And then we can do new restaurant dot value dot name. So what we should be able to do now is new restaurant dot name. And then just to show that everything's actually working though, let's go ahead and just render out the data real quick. So let me do a pre-element and we'll just render out new restaurant, just like that. Okay, so that's totally empty right now. So then we can see this is great, perfect. And now let's go just add a couple more things while we're at it. Let's go ahead and add the restaurant address. Okay, so this is gonna need to be wrapped in a div. Whoop. And div, like that, perfect. And then we'll wrap this in a div, great. And then we'll just move this to address, restaurant.address. So this is good. Oh, interesting. This is vModel ID text. Okay, so how do I, okay, that's totally fine. 10 street, there we go, we can see that. And then restaurant address, div here, add restaurant, there we go. Okay, here is where it starts to get interesting now. So the status, right? Remember we talked about status. So status though, we need something here to basically say, okay, what exactly do we want to, how do we want to track the different things that we're doing? And we don't want someone to just freeform this. We have an informational hierarchy that we want to do, that we want to showcase. So how do we do that? We can basically start to define the type for the restaurant status, is how I would call it. And we basically have the ability to define what we want. So for now, we say want to try is one of them. We can say recommended is another. We can say do not recommend. And then we can say must try. Let's just keep it simple. Let's keep it down to 4 right now. So the status must be one of these 4 things. So if I do this and do restaurant status now, we can see that we have this ability now to be like, oh, this is interesting. Empty string is not actually applicable to any of this. By default, we should probably just make this want to try, just like that. And you can see here, it actually matches it to say, yes, this is go ahead. This is actually contained in here. If we try to go outside the box, let's say, I don't know, backlog, for example, this is where it'll yell at us to be like, actually, backlog is not applicable to the situation. And that's what's super helpful. So anyhow, so I wonder actually, can it actually even, oh yeah, so you see here, even when I command space, you'll see the autocomplete actually does appear. It'll tell me the 4 different strings that are available for this. And once again, I think approaching TypeScript as a personalized autocomplete, I think it's actually nice. Especially given that if I look at this like a few days from now, I'm probably going to forget some of the things I thought through. So it's nice to see this stuff being naturally enforced throughout without basically a lot of additional work. I think is how I'm currently seeing it. Okay, so we have that. You know what? For now, I'm actually let's keep it even simpler. I'm just going to delete the address for now. Because right now there's a lot of code running around and I like to simplify this part. Okay, restaurant name, restaurant status. Okay, so here's the thing though, is now we need to actually create the restaurant status as a dropdown. There's no point in it being empty text. That would just create a lot of errors for users. So what I'm thinking we could do then is, I'm trying to think. Okay, so the way we would approach this first is we'd probably have some reactive variable that is, or some constant, right, that tracks the status. So if we call it a status list, for example, we would have this ability to have all these things here. The only thing though that kind of is, I'm trying to think of how to programmatically do this, is you want the types from this type to kind of get auto-populated in here, if that makes sense. So I think that's a thing to explore, is how to extract types from type. values, right? Because that's basically what we want. We want all of these defined value. Okay, let's see. MRP1 is an enum. Okay, you said you want us to do an enum? JavaScript enum. I have played with those before, but right, that's fine. But then my thing is that, okay, so if we've defined the documentation as types here, you want to actually like almost, let's see, TypeScript abstract type values into array. Is that a thing? Maybe get values from union type into array, maybe. Okay, here we go. String, yep. And so why would you, yep. Looks like type of all suits. And then that does the thing. Oh, so you have a constant that you feed out. Object.values restaurant status. Then you can get the list on a template. Ooh, I just bumped the mic. Hello, Cookify Media. How's it going? Enum, then object.values restaurant status. Oh, interesting. So what you're saying is you're saying you would want to do an enum of restaurant status first. Oh, okay. That's interesting. So then you're saying that yep. And then from here you would enum that. But that's, okay, let's see. Const all status type of all suits. So this is an interesting way to do it, is you would then grab that enum test. Right. Okay. So what I'm seeing here in the chat from TGMRP1. Hey, radio signal. How's it going? So this is what the enum would look like. So we would say want to try is equivalent to this. Again, let's just keep it simple now to recommended. That seems like there's a lot of duplication here when it's just, I think the string is just what I want to keep. But then you're saying that type status would be, okay, so enum, let me do this. Let me do all restaurant status. And the type you're saying is object.values. Oh, wait, no, that would be the array. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I'm trying to get the TypeScript here to actually work. So I think that's part of it. So we'd have a constant called all status, I think, from what I'm seeing here. This is a little bit closer to, I think, what we were going for, which was like want to try, recommend, must try. Let's just start with 3 values just to keep it easy. Want to try, or anyways. Okay, so we have those 3. Then they're saying that if we do type restaurant status, we can do type of all status. Okay. Does that actually work? And then I guess that's it. So it'll be like that. Although now I'm thinking something. Why is my keyboard acting up? Right, there we go. This is now acting up. It's not assignable to type string, but it's not type string. It's restaurant status. So that didn't work. Oh, TGMRP1, you're saying that I don't need to type? Let's see. Want to try, recommend, must try, ESLint. It's throwing me some issues. Oh, tuple is another example. Yeah, so it's interesting. When we had this earlier, okay, actually, this is a great example of when I think it's tricky, because we have this situation now where we clearly want the ability to type things. And I think this is where some of the complaint is, that TypeScript gets complicated. And so earlier we had something working. So let me actually just revert this real quick. Where we basically said, let's go back before this. Go back. Okay. We had this, and then we have this status list. This was working as it stands. This is currently not defined. That's totally fine. So if we look at this real quick, though, this is totally good for now. Key restaurant dot name. Okay. Want to try. Yeah. Oh god, ESLint is driving me bonkers. Yeah, okay, let's see. TGMRP1, the object values for getting the list on select. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so let me play around with enums later. I want to actually get this part working real quick. Again, I'm not loving this duplication right here, but I'm not seeing a clear way to translate this to this just yet. At least it's not immediately obvious to me. Okay, so let's see. Interface, restaurant status, restaurant status. Okay, let me do this real quick and commit this, and then TGMR, I'm going to try your suggestion in just a sec. So what we can do here is that in this label status, rather than an input, we're going to do a select, and then this is for restaurant status, same thing, restaurant status. And then inside of here, we can basically loop through the, what did I call it? I called it status list. Status in status list, value bind status, and then I think that's it. There we go. So now we see our thing here. Want to try, recommend, must try. So then we do yogurt, add restaurant. Oh, this is interesting. It's not hooked up to anything yet. Oh, that makes sense because the V model is going to be new restaurant dot status. Okay, so we refresh this now. There we go. Do not recommend. Froyo, add restaurant. Great. Okay, so only kind of problem. Whoa, what is this? We see this whole thing. Expected to have a v bind key directive. Oh, yeah, silly me. Status. Okay, now it's happy. Object cannot, attribute name cannot contain. Oh, interesting. So it's saying it doesn't like, oh, wait, hang on. There we go. That's why it's yelling. Okay, so let's just do this real quick. So we have this. Let's just commit some code real quick. Git commit, add basic. So this is a feature, add basic restaurant, add form. Okay, so taking a look at the code here that TGMR is looking at. So let's take a look at this enum bit. Okay. So here, okay, so we have recommended, want to try. Yep, that's what we had earlier. And then the idea here that's being mentioned here is that we have all this stuff. And then for status here, okay, so by doing it like this, the enum is here. Why is it parsed funny? ESLint expected, restaurant status. Okay, let's comment this out real quick. Why is it not happy? Parsing error. Oh, because I don't think it has the equal sign. There we go. Recommended enum member must be followed by this duplicate identifier. Okay, so I guess it's saying that the identifier is different. So it's like this. Then must be followed by the E, like this, like that. Okay. And then must be followed by, wait, I don't understand. Can I do a comma here? Okay, comma here, save. Okay, so enum status is working. Says the enum is restaurant status. And then from here, but it doesn't give me additional information on, I guess it could be that. And then I think what you're trying to say here is that rather than have this piece be here, you're saying that inside of here, what did we call it? Restaurant status, right? So we can call this object dot values from restaurant status. And if we do that, oh wait, I killed the server. Boom, refresh. Okay, so interesting. We have a recommended 0 want to try. Okay, so this is, let's see, object.values does not exist. Oh, this is interesting. So we're kind of getting a TypeScript yelling at us kind of thing, clearly, because it's not assignable. Okay, this makes sense. So I could say restaurant status dot want to try like this. I think that'll be better. So if I refresh that, still giving me the 0, which is interesting. Does that change anything? Okay, that's like a weird bug then. It's like that duplicate entry is automatically adding a 0 if I don't duplicate the piece here. Okay, so enum clearly is one way to do this. The one thing I did like about the type approach though is that when you type it like this, we get more documentation showing up in the hover, which is pretty nice. So I do like that in that regard. So that's been good. And then I guess, yeah, the only thing is that to your point, because this is a type, how do you then automatically generate those things? So that is still a question. But anyhow, we are still in good hands. So let's go ahead and, okay, so the enum stuff, that was super interesting. So TGMRP1, thank you for that. I'm going to leave that commented in here because I think I want to play with that later. Okay, so let's go back to the status list just for the sake of trying this. So again, once again, we can actually see what values are available to us. So let's go ahead and just do that want to try. The autocomplete is pretty sweet. And then this way we have the status list here. And then now we should be good. The good place. Great. Okay. Now that we've typed those things, it's time to actually figure out how we can go ahead and start filtering out this list and showing different properties about it, right? So we have here, we have status, and more importantly, not only do we have status, once we've added the restaurant, we want to actually track the restaurant status itself. So want to try. And that way when we keep adding stuff, we'll be like the bad place, and then it'll be like, do not recommend. Oh, that's interesting. The do not recommend did not change. Huh. Why is that the case? Oh, silly me. The reason is because I hard coded it. Silly me. New restaurant valued as status. This should do it. Okay. So we have the good place. And then we have recommended. Great. And then we have the bad place. And then do not recommend. There we go. Okay. I was going to say, let's see, Jacob Bolda, here you say the enum kind of ends up working like an object then where you have the list of values through that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering, I just want to see if there's like a way to like still leverage the simplicity of the type while then generating things. Let's see, Cookify Media. Is it possible to make a type name key of type of enum name and then get the enum of your type? I want to say yes, and for the sake of the recording. So the question here is asking if we could do like type test type equals type of key of type of the basically, let's say enum status. Okay, so wait, this is too many type of key of. I think I messed up. Key of type of this. And then let me just uncomment this real quick to say enum status. So let's group this together real quick here. So then looks like what we get here is actually exactly what Cookify. So Cookify Media, to answer your question, yes. What we see here is that we get the ability to actually see the keys. So in other words, what we get is the ability. So if I say const test status, and that is of type test type, then we can basically, we do get the completion here of must try, recommended, and want to try, which is pretty cool. So the thing is that, so if you do key of type of, it automatically creates the union operator, which is actually interesting. So would that mean that if you key of type of, again, this is where TypeScript gets confusing for people who haven't like fully dove into it, because now if we want to get the values of the enum status, then we're trying to, let's see, get values from enums JavaScript. Bum, bum, bum. Key of type of. It's funny when you can combine stuff like that. Enum values as an array. Let's see, enum, bum. Object.keys filter. Wait, no, I want the value though. Key filter. Is it just the keys? Oh, I see. Macy, hello. How's it going? Hello, Mac. All right, object.keys of enum status. What does that do? That did not work. So key of type of enum status. So this technique did something. This grabbed all the keys on the side, but I want the value of those things. So key of type script enum get value as type. All right, handbook enums. How to build a type from enum values in TypeScript. Oh, this is probably what we're looking for. You can map it record declare const foo interface. Wait, what? Type foo type equals record foo key, but it's a type alias. Okay, let's just try this. Test type record type equals record of enum status string. And what does this do? This creates an object. That's not what I want. That's not what I want at all. Although this person did ask for an interface. Union. Convert enum to a union type. Okay, someone else has this problem. Enum type. Okay. Key of type of. Wait, that's exactly what. Oh. Nope. I lost it. Hang on. Because I don't think the keys can be like. Can they be like this? Oh, apparently they can. Okay. So types value in. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is the answer. It's been staring at me in the face. So what are we cooking? We are cooking up a Vue3 and TypeScript app where we're playing around with different ways of using TypeScript that makes people's lives easier while adding documentation to their code. And again, that doesn't do the whole like, you need to TypeScript everything, because I'm not a big fan of once you have the hammer in your hand and seeing everything as a nail. I'd like to figure out I'm like part of my, I don't know, call it like my principles when it comes to software development is about figuring out the right tools to actually help people make progress in the tools they develop. And so when you're building apps, like TypeScript absolutely has proven value when it comes to like autocomplete and those sort of things. But as we can see here, sometimes when you don't understand some of the more intricate parts of JavaScript, you end up feeling like you're fighting TypeScript rather than TypeScript helping you. And I'm trying to figure out that happy medium for everyone in preparation for a workshop that I'll be teaching in a week. Okay, so it looks like there are two different ways to do this. So the enum here does a nice job in that once you've defined those key things, then we basically do have the ability, right? So honestly, this does tell me that like we can say, oh, recommended is R, want to try can be W. That could have, or actually, you know what the other way around probably would be, is you would probably have zero, like usually enums are this way, 0.want to try, and then 1 is you've tried it, so you say, let's say you recommended it. 2 is going to be do not recommend, and then 3, oh gosh, I totally botched that. 2, 3 equals must try, right? Although it's not liking the numbers anymore. Cannot have a numeric name. First it says it wants it, now it says it doesn't want it. Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, I see what it's saying. Sorry, I messed up. Want to try, and then that is equal to 0. Like that. There you go. Then recommend it, or do not recommend is... Actually, do not recommend should be -1. Honestly. Because then at that point, you're like, whoa, stay out of the way. And then you have recommended, which is going to be your 1. And did not anticipate that. Must try is like those restaurants that you're like, oh, if someone comes to visit, this is like totally worth it. Okay, so just like that, we've created like a little scale. And so if that's the case, then we can say type value union. So we're saying type restaurant status could then take that and say key of type of. And then this is where we would call it all. It's interesting though. You have okay. So restaurant status enum. I guess it will be explicit that way. Restaurant status enum. like that. So now this has all the 4 that we want. And then from there, though, we can loop through that because we can then say, okay, so hold on, let's delete that, delete that. Things are breaking. That's that, enum restaurant status. This is down here. Why is it oh yeah, it's unhappy for the ESLint. Now this is where we don't need status list anymore. And then we can basically say, okay, so now that we have, this is what we're gonna do. So in key of restaurant status enum, do this looks odd. Maybe like this. Refresh. Okay, so this just listed everything. That's not what we want at all. Let's see. Only get keys from enum. Do loop through enum key. For each object.keys. So object.keys like this. I feel like that did not work either. So it does not like something about restaurant status. Something about this doesn't. Oh, this is interesting. It has a bunch of them. Why would it do that? The enum already is one. Why is it flipping it back on me? Because it can go either way. Is that what it's trying to say? So we're saying const status equals restaurant enum dot. Yeah, like this. Why is it saying there's the other way? Something's funky. Something is weird. Okay, so at the bare minimum, let's do this. Let me make a note about this. This seems to be, that is worth noting. Okay, that was interesting. Okay, great. Okie dokie. So for whatever reason, the looping here is acting up. Enums are cool, but again, for the sake of keeping things at its simplicity, I'm gonna go back away from this just to, because I think most people, when we're working with primitives, I know that enums, tuples, those are starting to become more prevalent in the JavaScript language, but I like to get it this part, because again, the enums clearly has a bunch of things you have to learn to make that work. And even this key of type of combination can be a bit of a doozy for people who are newer to JavaScript and still trying to wrap their heads around things. So knowing that, we have all this here. Yep. Oh, man. Okay, let's see. Actually, what I can do, I think I can check everything out because we're playing with things with that. Okay, so there we go. Yep. Okay, at the stage this is at right now, this is simple enough. What happened? Oh, wait. Don't save homepage. Okay, this is, I think, at this kind of level of simplicity that I think is good for people. So the only thing is that I'm trying to figure out now how to, yeah, this is interesting. Okay, before we do anything else, the one thing let's go ahead and do is, so we have that, we have this, we have the ability to try this. Oh yeah, I needed to fix, this was a bug. New restaurant value status, this is great. Okay, so sometimes let's keep going. Let me commit that. Let me add a new terminal. This is fix. Allow status to be dynamic and not hard coded. Okay, great. Okay. The other thing we have to do, the other thing we haven't done yet is we have this dish type and of what people want to try from said restaurant. And so when they're creating a dish, there's interface dish. We basically have things like, okay, what's the name of the dish? We can do like diet, because there will probably be different labels for that's optional. And so this is what's interesting about, I think, when TypeScript is used at this fundamental level is you might be like, what is a diet? And so I can say type diet is basically either, yeah, I can take this autocomplete. It can be any of these strings basically. And so it will be of type diet, just like that. And then even that alone, and so here's what's interesting, right? Here we go. Actually, check this out. So once you've tried a dish, you actually have the ability to actually then say the recommended status, right? And it's actually similar to tried it, don't recommend, or maybe would try again. And so what we can do is rather than just we can reuse what we did with restaurant status and just call it like recommend status for now. Let's keep it simple. So if I just switch that out here, now we get this benefit of, let's see. Yep. Okay. So what's cool now is that when we're looking at dish, we can see here that if you look at status, there we go. We can actually have a recommended status. And that is documented in the same way so that you don't actually get this recreation of effort across platforms, right? That's how you get that natural refactoring, which is really helpful for code maintenance, especially as a code base grows. So now that we have this, of course, once again, it becomes even more important of how do you generate like a list of things from a type. So we're actually going to spend a couple minutes actually to look that up right now. So how to generate an array from type union. Union type from an array. How about the other derive union type from a tuple? Okay, it looks like people are going the other way around. That's fine with me. So we can do that. Object.key. We're back to this thing now. It looks like list number. Again, I don't understand this type of list number. Like, why is it called number here? Let's see, as constant text. Can we figure this out? Okay. TypeScript as const. Did someone write a tutorial on it? Let's see. As const. There's a constant assertion. And then once you do that, that still doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Because then the type of key, like, again, do we have TypeScript in here? Can I actually play around TypeScript in the console? Type test equals hello. Nope, there's no TypeScript in the console. Okay. So actually, you know what? Let's go to the TypeScript playground because this is a concept that I don't think is that straightforward. So here, run, let's see. So there we go. Type of this, list as const. Do const item type needed union type equals D. Then this tells me that it's not assignable to A, B. That's good, but type of normally fetches. So actually here, let's do this. So we log type of list, for example, and we take a look at the logs here and we run it. We'll see that it's an object. Okay, I'm good with that. But then what's interesting here is that then that object is fed this arbitrary. Are they saying this is like the index? Is that why they're saying it like this? And if I run it, index is not defined. Number. Yeah. So where is this number keyword showing up? Why is type of number TypeScript? Okay, so it's like a different. Okay, so type of variable. So does it matter what I name this? It looks like that won't work. Const test value needed union type equals D. Okay, but why is it yelling about index? Oh, it's saying number is a type? String. Type read only, has no matching index signature. Oh, wow. Woo. That's... Okay, so I think I understand it now. When you're saying that this thing is an enforced thing that generates this thing here, it's saying that it needs to be a number because arrays are objects with the zero, like they're indexed via their number, like 0, 1, 2, 3. And so when you pass that in and you type of, then when it gets that value, it's automatically pulling that. Wow, I'm like, I almost wish there was I don't know. I'm skeptical of this, but okay, so here. So what it's saying here is that you'd have this const thing called restaurant status, right? List. So you have this restaurant status list. And however, we need it to be a constant. And this is something that's TypeScript specific. It's because you're saying this whole thing is now read only. In other words, people should not be modifying this list for now. It does beg the question of if someone does modify that status list, could you you probably couldn't. And that's what's tricky about this. But one thing at a time. And then rather than doing this type here recommend status, rather than do this, what they're saying is we would say, okay, we know we have this variable called restaurant status list, but then we'll just get all the values in it and that will be outputted here. And then we get our union type. So that is a slightly better refactor. I would say just from a teaching perspective, what I find this confusing is one, you have a const already. It's a constant. And then you're double defining it as const, which again, it's a TypeScript way of saying it's read only. And then you have to do the type of each of the value at this. It's mind bending, which is what I have a little bit of a tricky time with. I'd almost rather recommend the duplication over this just because there's something funky about this. But anyways, I'll keep playing around with it and keep y'all posted on it. Okay, so we've done that. We have dishes and then the dish, yes. Okay, so what we're gonna wanna do now within our app is we're gonna need to have a page for dish. So inside of our about page, let's actually make this a dish page. So I'm just gonna call this page. And then inside of our routes, home view, about view, yes. Dishes, or I'll just say, actually no, dishes page is better. Dish is page, name is dishes, import dishes page, just like that. Save. Okay, so now if we click this, we should get the dishes page, although it's not showing anything. Oh yes, silly me. When we go to the app.view, it's because this is still saying that. Okay, so if I refresh, now there we go, dishes page. Okay, so the thing we want to do now in the time we have left is quickly scaffold a way to add dishes. So if we do that, all we need to do, let's go ahead and actually let's just mostly copy this for now. So let's save this. And then we're just going to modify a couple of things real quick. This will be add dish. And then we'll make this dish list. Again, there's absolutely a refactoring we're going to be able to do. But for now, we're just going to run with this because we're just trying to do this. And then just like that, we have the restaurant new dish.value.status. Oh, wait, too many things. Dish name. Not going to worry about that. Dish here. Dish status. 1, 2, 3. Dish like that. Status list. That status list does not exist right now because it's restaurant status list. Great. Save. Okay. Dish status. Want to try. Recommend. Okay. This is good. We don't need this anymore. We don't need this. Diet. Okay. So a couple of things. We already have some duplication between the two code bases, right? We have the restaurant name, dish name. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to actually share those things. So let me go ahead and fix this side up too actually as well. So we can say here, this will be restaurant status list. There we go. And then the default value though, however, is restaurant status list. As we can see here, we need to have the status be set to want to try. There you go. Once that's set by default, then we can have, okay, that's not working here. So actually, let me switch this so we were more consistent. And then on the dishes page, there we go. We can set a standard status to want to try. just like that. And then let's see, dish status, no overload matches this call. What the heck does that mean? Dish diet status, diet undefined. Oh, is it because there's no name? I did not make the name optional. So it's trying to say, hey, you require a name. That's what's going on. Okay, so we have that. Great. And we're at this point now where we have some shared codes. Let me just commit this real quick. Commit feature, add dishes page. So we can say here, we can say tacos, right? And then we can say burgers, and this is great. We have the various dishes, but then what we need to also be able to do then is then also associate those dishes probably with a specific restaurant for now. Let's just run that for now. So the first thing we have to do is we clearly have we have some repetition going on here. So first thing first is let's start by creating a file here on the constants file. And we're gonna want this restaurant status list to be something that we have available to multiple files. So we're just gonna export, that's what we're gonna do. And then we're gonna have the ability to have different types. So for now, I'm just gonna create a types.ts file. It's possible that it would make sense to have a folder of types, especially if this got really out of hand. But for now, I don't think that'll be the case. So let's just export this as well. And this is something that we can drop in here. So export type recommend status. And then here, we don't have restaurant status list yet, right? So we can do restaurant status list from constants, just like that. Although import is never used as a value, must be used as import type. Constants, export const. Yep. Why is it not liking it? Restaurant status list. Yep. Is set to errors. Import not used as values. Whoop. Oh, it's not used as a value. I don't care about that. This is okay. Ignore that. That's again weird TypeScript bug. Okay. So now we save this. Let's see. We should be able to delete this and delete this. This should break things, which makes sense because now none of that exists. So now we can then import recommend. Let's see. Import recommend status from types. Root view, yes. Does not like that. Export type import is not used as import type. It is used right here. Oh, good. Okay, actually, never mind. That's actually working. So here we go. That's actually working. We have a weird linting error, which I'm not even going to bother. Restaurant status list from constants and restaurant status list here. Oh, actually, did I actually make that? No, I kept that lowercase, so I need to keep this lowercase too. Okay, save constants. Okay, so now we refresh. Whoops, the home page. It did not like that. Oh, I know why. It's because I broke everything. Okay, home view, dish page. Let's do home view. Grab this stuff. Drop it in the dishes page as well so that things can compile correctly. So now that we have that, oh, it still doesn't like it. npm run dev. Yep, that's good. It did not like. It suggests to use import type instead of import, doesn't it? Oh, that's, you are probably right. There we go. That fixed that error. Import type like this. Okay, great. Yes, thank you very much. Iku PS Toa. Let's see. Have you tried Matt Peacock's TypeScript error translator VS Code extensions? What? All right, let's go. TypeScript error translator. There we go. Okay, so there we go. So now we have that. Let's actually go ahead and run that again. Let's see. Recommended set must be imported using a type only import using preserved value inputs and isolated modules. Alias. Okay, that's better. I do like that. That's pretty darn good. So we're also saying that, again, let's say that what other things can we blow up? Test number, for example. Actually, that won't blow up. We need this to blow up. This will do it. That'll blow things up. No overload matches this call. That's helpful, I guess. But this is cool. Argument of type. Let's see. Translation. I was expecting. Okay. This is pretty great. That is pretty great. Thank you. Radio signal. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. So Wingmat here. Is that import type syntax view specific? I haven't been using that for my type imports, but I've been working in React. I think to Iku's point, I think this is a TypeScript thing. I don't think it's not. It might, and so part of it, Wingmat, though, it might be a certain version of TypeScript that's starting to enforce this. That's what I've seemed to have noticed, is that as TypeScript continues to grow and evolve, the rules do seem to change a little bit depending on what version you're using. So that's why you'll see on a lot of TypeScript documentation, depending on even minor versions, can make some major differences in the recommendations that I'm seeing. So that is pretty great. So awesome. Okay, so this is cool. Thank you, Iku, for the suggestion. That extension is pretty great. Okay, so we have this, we have dishes. Okay, so what do we want to do? Okay, let's see. We're cleaning some stuff up. We don't need this. Oh, the dish is being used in multiple places, right? So there's nothing stopping us then from saying dish should something that should also be able to be exported from our types. So export interface dish like this. It's interesting that this is telling me to say import type, even though it's not really a type. So that's what I find a little bit weird, but that's fine. So inside of here, we need the type diet. That's now happy, but we don't need to export that yet. So then I could then say import dish like this. And I guess I don't need the recommend status anymore, which is cool. And then, oh, that's way cleaner. Okay, dish. And then we need the dish type here. Oh wait, now we don't need this anymore. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so now it's yelling at us. Why? Because, oh yeah, because I left this alone. There we go. Now it's not blowing up. Okay, this is pretty good. Okay, so let's walk through this to talk about why this is pretty useful. We've done we had some type definitions. We played around with kind of the level of abstraction that works well. And so what's nice about this is, one, you'll notice I have not exported restaurant into the types definition yet. And the reason for that is because it's not being reused anywhere. It's literally it's localized to this one file. I don't really see a point in abstracting it to another module just for the sake of doing so. And what's nice is because at this point, there's not any reuse being seen. Why can't I hide my status bar? There we go. Okay. Because we don't see the interface being reused in a lot of different places yet, there's not a lot of value in that. So I'm going to leave it in here. So when people are going through and looking through things, we can now actually be like, oh, okay, this is a restaurant. This is the one thing that's interesting, though, that interfaces don't show more documentation. If we switch this to a type right, yeah, so we can see here. You see that more, like the actual shape of the object shows up. So it's interesting that it doesn't show up that way. That is one thing I don't like about interfaces compared to types, is that fact that it's like, oh, it's an interface. Like, that's nice. I could have looked that up myself. It would be nice to tell me the shape of the object. Okay, that said, look at this documentation here is just light enough that it gives you information on what to expect in different parts without being completely overbearing. And more importantly, we get the type safety that comes with a lot of things, so that in the future, if we're adding stuff, we have the ability to then say, okay, so for example, right, inside of dishes, I can't just be like, oh, I want to try pizza. That just wouldn't work, because it knows that pizza it's not associated with the structure of the dish that is basically being built somewhere else. And that, I think, is an absolute huge win for people's development. But like I said, I think the challenging thing is establishing the right principles so that you can feel the benefits of TypeScript in a way that doesn't interfere with your code. And we have to do some really deep dives into how things work. And so a lot of those tips and tricks will definitely be coming as far as the workshop that I'm teaching. But otherwise, let's see. Otherwise, I think this is looking pretty good. See, like even here, right, with the dish, we can see here, dish. Yeah, we have a list of dishes. We have new dishes. And then we have the ability to add a dish. This, oh wait, this is wrong. Restaurant status list. That's something I would need to refactor. Yeah. Okay. That's that. Pretty happy with that. We had a, let's see. So let me just commit all this stuff. Refactor, clean up, move reusable parts to external modules. Great. All right, so this has been fun. We got to play around with some TypeScript inside of Composition API. We've seen some of the woes, right? Where, again, I think that's what's tricky about TypeScript is it's easy to get into a rabbit hole of wanting to optimize all your types to be perfect and everything when there is a level of just documenting just enough to get you that autocomplete that allows you to just move forward. And so this is just a small taste of, not even a taste, honestly, this is a working session, but if you're interested in more like Vue 3 TypeScript things, I will be teaching a front-end masters workshop. Check out frontendmasters.com/workshops. But let's see, so we might hear, awesome, I've eventually loved my forays into TypeScript so far. Will be interesting to see more about how it's used with Vue. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where TypeScript has this ability to enhance people's code bases, but I do think the way it's been pushed to the community, unfortunately, has left a bit of a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouth. And I'd like to recenter that narrative a bit so that when people look at TypeScript, they're not immediately like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? But yeah, I think that about takes care of it today. Thanks everyone for hanging out today. I really appreciate it. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you all another time. All right, take care everyone. Bye-bye.